Hey everyone, welcome to DeHaven Family Farm. Today we are going to do a 20-hour review of the SVL 65 you can see behind me. I'm going to try and keep this video short and informative, so we're going to kind of buzz around the machine and look in the cab. And as we go around, we're going to do the positive things about the machine and the negatives at the same time. Just to save time in the video. It's a little windy out here today, so I apologize if there's some wind noise. I tried to park on the side of the garage here so that the garage, which is behind you, blocks some of the wind. So let's get started. Okay, so as I said, this is SVL 65. It's a 2019. This was on loan to me. Here I've got about 20 hours of seat time on it. So this is not a long-term review, but I'm not really concerned about a long-term review with Kubota because they've been making these machines for a long time, and this is just basically a smaller one with similar quality components to the 75 and 95 that they've been making. So overall, I'm not concerned about a quality issue. This is more about sort of the features and the pluses and minuses with the machine feature wise. So let's start right here in the front. So this machine has the cab, heat, AC, all of that stuff works very well. You don't have to worry about not having enough vents to clean the windows off or to get cold air blowing on you. That is very sufficient. It of course has the roll-up door, so it gets up out of your way. You don't have to worry about it swinging out and hitting your boom if your boom doesn't happen to be down all the way. So that's nice. This machine does not have high flow, but it is available. This is just standard hydraulics here for grapples and things like that. Comes standard on the machine. A couple of things I don't like as we're standing here in the front. The first thing is this machine does not have the hydraulic quick attach. You can see this arm here and this arm here. That's for manually taking off your implement. That's not a big deal. I'm not complaining about that, but what I'm complaining about is the length of these arms. They are very, very short. And anybody who has run, I mean, you can see there's my hand. That's how short these are. So anybody who has run a machine before knows that sometimes your bucket or whatever gets some gunk down in it, and those levers don't want to go up and down good. So the levers are very short. They need to be about at least 4 or 5 inches longer so that you have additional leverage as you're trying to hook and unhook the bucket. So that's one thing I don't like. That can be alleviated if you buy the hydraulic quick attach version. The next thing that I don't like is the tracks that are on the machine. And again, this problem can be alleviated. It comes with either a narrow track or a wide track. This particular machine has the narrow track on it, which is good if you are buying the machine for tight places. It's nice that the option is there. However, if you get to choose and you're not worried about the width so much, I would absolutely take the wide track over the narrow track. It's going to make a little bit less of a mess if you're working in conditions. You know, for me doing landscape work, I don't want to tear things up because then I have to fix them. And it's better for flotation. So that would be something that I would do. But again, it is available from the factory that way. So I would pick that option. Now, for those of you that have been with the channel a while, you know that I had a rubber tire machine from Kubota. It was an SSV 75, and I'm going to be making a few comparisons between that machine, the rubber tire machine from Kubota, and this machine. One of the things that I really like about the SVL series is that the fuel fill is on the side of the machine here as opposed to in the back. It's just more convenient for me. You know, if you have to use a fuel can or something, it's a little bit lower. Not a huge deal. I just happen to like that a little bit better. Okay, moving around to the back of the machine. You may see a little smoke. That's just the chimney in the garage there. Nothing to worry about there. So here we're at the back of the machine. There's some pluses and minuses here between the rubber tire Kubota version and the rubber track machines. The rubber track machines have a much lower profile in the back here, which gives you a lot better visibility out the back and to the side versus the rubber tire machine. There is a trade-off to that, however. The accessibility for maintenance isn't quite as good. So we'll take a look at that quick. Before we do that, I am going to show you here, most Kubota equipment. Gives you this nice little diagram here, has some different hours listed there and the different services here, just for quick reference. So we open the door here on the side. And this once again uses a pin system to hold the door open. So there is the giant radiator right in the way for you to be able to access things. I do believe it pops out of there, and this door here does pop up to give you some access in here. There's your oil check. There's the wonderful emissions. Air filter is pretty easy to access. And being that this machine is on loan to me, I have not done any service work to it, so I can't tell you how difficult it is to change the oil or anything. Obviously there's your battery, your coolant check is right here. So it does look like the radiator would have the potential to somewhat get out of the way for you. However, it is bolted in there. It is not a quick swing. Some of the skid steer manufacturers out there have the radiator on sort of hinges so you can swing it out of the way. So I guess I would say that's one downfall, is the accessibility to the maintenance isn't as good as on the rubber tire machine. But if you remember, the trade-off to that was you have a lot better visibility out the back window. You also have fuel filters over here. Okay, so that's just a brief overview of the back of the machine. There's not a whole lot to say about the side of the machine here. I guess as we walk by, I can mention that typical of Kubota machines, they do have all of the grease fittings easily accessible from the side, which is nice. Hydraulic oil fill is right there. Now let's talk a little bit about the cab. It is very messy in here. This is how the machine came to me. You know, being in the rental department, it doesn't always get cleaned great. So we mentioned that the air conditioning and the heating and the vents are very sufficient. This has a suspension seat here. You can see seat belt has the fold down bars that you have to fold down. If you notice, the location of the radio would be slightly behind you, but again, much better than the location on the rubber tire machine, which puts it up, I forget which corner, but way back up in one of the corners, harder to access. The other thing is the heating and air conditioning and some of the buttons on this machine are located on the sides of you, which is much more convenient again than the other machine. The rubber tire machine, they were up in one of the corners, which again, it was behind you and harder to access. So let me hop into the machine here and I'll give you a better view of the inside of the cab. Okay, so once again, don't mind the mess, but you have a foot throttle, a nice big floor area. You can see there's some tools and things in here. Nice big operator area here. Over here is just your simple sort of gauge cluster, hour meter, your hand throttles over here, regen light. It will do it automatically. You do not need to stop the machine. No big deal there. And then over here, this is what I was talking about. Here's a nice row of switches for various functions. It looks like you can add more to that. A nice cup holder there. So let's gently swing around to the other side. We'll put this arm down. This is where your switch would be if you had the hydraulic quick connect in the front. Of course, your wiper, you can turn the regen off. And then the only thing that's a little bit annoying about this system, I'm glad that they moved the HVAC controls down here as opposed to up behind you. But when you have this bar down, it's a little bit hard to access them. When the bar is up, you can see them here a little bit better. But with the bar down, you can't really see them. You can kind of feel what you're doing. In the summertime, when you don't have gloves on, it's easy. In the wintertime, when you have a big bulky glove on possibly, it's a little harder to access that. I think they could do a slightly better job on the location of these controls. So possibly move these, I would think just move these switches to the other side of the machine and then move these HVAC controls up to here. that's just my suggestion. This is a pilot control machine. These are hydraulic joysticks. They're not electronic, so you don't have to worry about all the electronic issues that come with it. You of course have 2-speed, and there's all sorts of hydraulic functions you can set on the 2 switches here. You know, if you have high flow, all your attachments can be run from these various buttons on the 2 joysticks. So one thing that I still think that Kubota needs to do is a little bit more work in the cab. Again, I like some of the positioning of the switches and things, but in the dark, these are completely dark. I think it's time for them to do a little updating on their cab. There's no reason that these cannot be either backlit switches or put some sort of light in here on each side so that you can see a little bit better what you're doing. And that's one thing I have enjoyed about Kubota stuff, is if you see some of the new machines that are out, you will see that they have added a tremendous amount of electronic things, which is great. There's a lot of features. You know, you can control your hydraulics electronically just from screens and buttons and things. That's fantastic. However, it is number one, expensive, and number two, if things start to go wrong, you have so many electronics in some of those machines. So I do really appreciate Kubota keeping things simple, because there's a lot less to go wrong on this machine. But I think they could do just a little bit of fine tuning to the cab and sort of take it to the next level. So again, if anybody from Kubota happens to see this, yeah, right. That would be one thing I would work on. The layout just a tiny bit, a few small tweaks, and you know, changing the switches a bit so that you have some backlighting there, so in the dark you can see what you're doing. So I'd like to address just a few questions I've had since I started posting videos about this machine. One of them was, do I feel that the machine has enough power? So as the machine sits here, it is about a 65 horsepower machine. I don't remember exactly what the net horsepower is on it. I will try and leave a link down below to Kubota's website if you want to check out the exact hydraulic specs and horsepower specs on the machine. I would say overall that yes, for its size, the machine does not feel underpowered. I will tell you, the only time I feel like I wish it had more power, keeping in mind that I'm sort of in the mountains here and everything I do is either uphill, downhill, uphill. We're not working on flat ground much. Sometimes going uphill, either pushing snow or just driving up a steep hill, I do notice that it starts to lag and struggle just a little bit. That can be easily rectified by shifting down into the lower gear. Once again, this is a 2-speed, so if you go from high down to low, then at that point it does not become an issue. It has plenty of power in the low speed. So yes, you know, you'll have to go a little bit slower on some of those steeper conditions, or if you're really working the machine, you know, the high speed will rob some of your power. So to answer that question, I do feel it has enough power, but you can't always work in the high speed. Another question I got was, do I feel that the machine has enough lift capacity? So overall, I do feel the machine has a very good amount of lift, and of course, it being a tracked machine, one of the great things about tracked machines is your tipping load. So it takes a lot more weight off the front of one of these machines to tip it forward versus a rubber tire machine. But again, you know, trying to answer, that's a little bit more of a difficult question about the lift. The best way that I could answer that question would be to look at what you're going to do with the machine, and you really do need to pick a machine that is appropriately sized for what you want to do. you know, if you're going to be moving, if you're in the excavating business and you're going to be moving huge stumps and super heavy duty things all the time, every day, then just because this is a nice compact track machine does not mean that it's going to be powerful enough to do what you need to do. If you're in the landscaping industry and you're going to be moving some 1-ton pallets of materials around and things like that, then this is very, very well suited for that. So in short, you need to just look at the specs of the different machines, and you need to pick one that's appropriate for your application. So overall, I would say, once again, I cannot really say anything bad about the Kubota machine. For those of you who do watch the channel on a regular basis, you know I am a fan of Kubota, but I am being honest on the machine. I've had very good luck with reliability from Kubota machines. I do feel that there could be a little bit of refinement on some of the aesthetics and features, but it would not, absolutely would not, stop me from buying one of these machines, especially if you were trying to pick out a very solid, reliable machine that does not have a tremendous amount of electronics and things to go wrong with it. So we're going to end the video there, guys. I hope I covered most of the basis. Again, trying to keep the video a little bit shorter. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Just leave them in the comment section down below. I do have some other videos on this machine, so be sure to watch those. Don't forget to leave a like, hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on the next video.